The Naked and the Dead by Norman Mailer. Now, this book was a chore to read. Of course, it was very slow. It took me more than a month because of obvious reasons. Now, I'm going to get right into the critical aspects of this book. Okay? It's not a bad book. Is it the greatest novel about war? Absolutely not. I think there is an actual quote here that says that this is one of the great, if not the greatest, novel about war. I don't agree with that. First of all, okay, I'm a writer myself, and I have to give this advice for, upcoming authors. This book is a prime example. Okay, listen up. You don't start your book by introducing, 20 characters. You just don't do it. Okay? Even after I was done with this book, I was asking myself, wait, who's Brown? Wait, who's Stanley? Right? Who's Roth? Right? And other characters, right? You just don't, especially, okay, this is a golden rule, okay? Most authors can't pull this off. Most authors can't be a George R. R. Martin and have a crazy cast of characters, and most of them are interesting and memorable. Okay, most authors can't do this, and this is a perfect example, right? You don't start your book by introducing crazy amounts of characters. Okay, I guess I understand that this is about war, we got soldiers everywhere, but still, take it easy. Take your time. It's like you start this book and we already have like fucking 10 characters, a dozen characters, and more are on the way. And I'm still asking myself, wait, who's this? Who's that? Was this character mentioned in the past, Because they're not that memorable, of course. And this is another thing. In The Naked and the Dead, a lot of characters are the same, bro. They're identical almost, with a few differences here and there that are, minimal, minor, right? They all talk the same. They all think about the same things. They all act the same, etc., right? But here is what Norman Mailer does wonderfully. Okay, he does something amazing here, which is that he showcases, that no matter the situation, no matter the crisis, like human beings will be human beings and they'll bicker and they'll complain and they'll, argue with one another, and they will accuse one another of silly shit. Basically, no matter what happens, people will be terrible to one another, and the author does this exceptionally well in the book. It doesn't matter what happens in this book. A second later, these dumbasses will fucking bicker about stupid, pointless shit, and they can get their asses shot off every second of every day, and they still bicker about this stupid, silly nonsense that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all, right? So, Mailer has captured human beings in their essence, right? Which is, I have a saying that goes like this: never underestimate the limitless potential for cruelty and malice that human beings possess. Right? This is our, artistry. This is our genius, that no matter what happens, we will find a way to, bully somebody else, accuse somebody else, bicker with somebody else for stupid nonsense. Right? This is who we are as a species, right? And the author does this wonderfully. Okay? And listen, Norman Mailer has a few passages here, a few of them, a handful of them that are wonderful, that I'm jelly of. I'm jealous of some of these passages that he has written. Okay? There are not a lot of them, but they stand out, they capture your attention, and I'm like, just damn, I wish I thought of that. Right? And now we are going to go into, let's call it the hilarious and tragic part of this novel, The Naked and the Dead. Listen, bro. Listen. Okay, I'm an author myself. I have a few books. I'm not a master of dialogue. Okay, I'm not a master of dialogue, but and I've read a good amount of books. A good amount of books. I've read a good amount of books, right? Some of them were exceptional, some of them were mid, and some of them were terrible, right? There aren't a lot of authors that can master the two quintessential aspects of storytelling, which is one, the characters, and then the story. Most authors are either good at characters or story. The true geniuses, the true godlike writers are rare because they are good at characters and storytelling. Okay? But, listen, bro. Listen, I don't know what happened. I get it. It was a different time when this book was written and published, right? Of course, books were still getting censored. Back in the day, you couldn't publish certain words that were naughty, that were bad, right? So censorship was still in its heyday back in the day, right? But still, this is no excuse, right, for this level, this caliber of absolutely garbage dialogue, okay? Garbage dialogue, okay? For the most part, there are a few pieces of dialogue in this book that are all right. Of course, most of them are between General Cummings and Hearn, right? For the most part, the dialogue is absolute dog shit, unacceptable trash, right? And it's like you just have to stand in awe and wonder what happened, because of course there are a lot of circumstances involved, a lot of conditions, like I said, censorship and what have you. People were, especially Americans, were, prudes back in the day, whatever, right? So, of course, maybe he had to, he couldn't actually put the word fuck in the book, so he had to replace it with fug, okay? And that to me is unacceptable. The amount of times this dude wrote fug, right? Fug instead of fuck. I mean, it's just, like, it's almost childish. Like, how old are we here? We're all adults here, bro. This is a serious novel about war and about the human condition, etc., and what war does to people, and we can't write the word fuck, right? We can't write the word fuck, right? You see, the problem is that these are battle-hardened soldiers, right? And because this word is constantly repeated, and it's not just this word, their dialogue in general is, juvenile. I don't know how I should describe or qualify, the quality of the dialogue is juvenile. It's childish, right? Which takes away from the gravity of the situation. You can't take these characters seriously, these adults, because their dialogue is dog shit. It lessens the seriousness of the plot, it lessens the impact of the characters. You can't take them seriously as adult men. because of their dog shit dialogue. It's just what it is. It wasn't immersive for me. Every time somebody spoke in this fucking novel, I was just like, bro, here we go again. These fucking assholes. This is it. They don't feel like real people when they speak. Okay, this is the problem that ruins the immersion. As a reader, every time somebody opens their mouth in this book, I'm just like, bro, what am I doing? What's going on here, bro? Chillax. Like, they don't talk like real people, and because they don't talk like real people, they don't feel like real people, and that is why I can't take them seriously. It's a nitpick, basically, but I don't know. It's just me. It's just me, right? It's like, I've read bad books, with bad dialogue, whatever. And I'm not a master of dialogue. Absolutely not. But, this is a special case where I'm just like, bro, there's almost no good dialogue whatsoever, at all. Almost nothing. Zero. Right? And it certainly doesn't help that, yet again, I have to repeat myself, it doesn't help that most characters talk the same way, they all sound the same, they all use the same jargon or whatever, it just doesn't help. They all seem like they're the same character, cardboard cutouts of the same, source, right? Almost all the characters, especially in Recon, they all seem the same. Okay, so this book should be read by aspiring writers because this book offers a very valuable lesson. Pay very close attention to your characters. The subtle details matter. The subtle details matter a great deal. You have to pay attention, okay? Crafting unique characters takes time. Okay? It takes time. Right? It's so difficult. And listen, I've been writing for 10 years. I've published a few books. Like, I can handle a handful of characters, right? After that, it's just like, what the fuck are we doing here? All right? I'm no George R. R. Martin. I don't have the skill to tackle like a plethora, a myriad of characters. I don't want to. Even if you paid me, I wouldn't do it. Because it's hard, bro. It's difficult. A handful of characters is all you need to tell a good story about human beings that are, interesting, right? So, all of you aspiring writers, read this book and pay close attention to the dialogue and to the characters. This is not how you do it. Okay? This book offers a valuable lesson, and we all should learn from it. Right? What else? Right? Of course, the plot itself, right? I was expecting some crazy war shit, right? But actually, what we have here is, reconnaissance. They have a mission, and they get split up because one of theirs gets wounded, Wilson, and half of the squad has to carry Wilson back, and the other half have to keep on going with their mission, and it just turns out to be a shit show, right? It's sad, and at the same time, it's just, bro, they kind of deserve what they got, what happened to them, okay? And, it's basically because of Croft, right? It's like, I don't get Croft. Croft, to me, he he can get his people to do what they are told. He controls his people with fear, right? He puts respect to his name with fear, but at the same time, I don't think that he is a good leader because nobody in his squad really respects him. Nobody in his squad looks up to him, etc. It's basically nobody not one of his men, not one of his soldiers trust him at all, right? Which to me, that's a sign of bad leadership, right? But anyway, so they, I mean, the mission itself is fucking, I don't know, it's crazy, right? They have to climb this fucking mountain through the jungle, right? Which is torture. It's torture. Like, basically, it seems like these characters are in limbo. And every waking second is pure torture, right? That's what it seems to me, right? Which is maybe a not so subtle insinuation that, war itself is, it's hell, right? It's endless torture, whatever, right? So half of the squad has to climb this fucking mountain, and the other half have to, take this wounded soldier back. And of course, they have to carry this guy, and it's torture. They don't have enough people, and it's the jungle, and, there's a river, and there's rocks, and it's just, like, the second half of this book, when the actual mission begins, it's just like, oh, every other chapter, it's just like, it's more of the same. It's a drag. It's a chore, It's just these dudes doing this hard work, climbing this mountain, dragging their wounded, comrade, and nothing pays off. Nothing pays off because, of course, the wounded soldier Wilson dies, so they carried him for, I don't know what the distance is, right? The island has over 100 miles, so they carried this guy for a lot of miles, and he died on the way, and these people are exhausted, and it was all for nothing. It was all a bad joke, right? So that was pointless. And of course, the other squad, led by Croft, right? They couldn't, conquer the mountain because, I don't know, somebody, maybe it was Croft, I don't know, somebody steps on a hornet's nest. And, these people, they're exhausted. They've been doing this shit for days, weeks, I don't know, days, right? Almost a week. And these hornets attack, and they leave their gear. They run away, and it's just this mission has failed. And this mission in of itself was supposed to give the army an advantage against the Japanese on this island, but it actually, was pointless because the U.S. Army claims victory almost at random. It almost happens at random. Some, higher up officer, I don't know, he moves his troops and he discovers, the Japanese headquarters, and the Japanese don't have supplies, and they get bombed, and they win, in a blitzkrieg almost. So, essentially, what our main characters, what they do in this novel for the war effort is absolutely pointless. It's sad, it's tragic, and of course, it's so hilarious. Like this, to me, like this novel, The Naked and the Dead, I think the author tried to show that war is, this limbo, that's pointless, that it's just, eternal suffering, eternal labor, eternal exhaustion, torture, agony, anguish, right? They're always exhausted. They're always on the move. They never, even when they're asleep, they don't rest. They're, full of pain. And, a lot of them, they just, grown-ass men, they just start crying and whimpering and for nothing because they're so exhausted. And they keep on going, right? So it's all pointless. Nothing that they did mattered at all. It was actually a big joke, right? But it was so cringe, so goofy that you can't even laugh at it directly. It's just sad. What happened to these people was just sad, right? And it kind of reminds me of the allegory of Sisyphus, right? Cursed by the gods to push a boulder, up the hill, watch it roll down, and then push it up again, watch it roll down. And basically, this is what they're doing. They're just doing pointless stuff that is exhausting and painful and torturous. Of course, and of course, there are levels to this. You see, human life in general is, this Sisyphus allegory. We occupy ourselves with stupid stuff that doesn't matter, and it's like Sisyphus. We're pushing boulders up a hill, watching it roll down, going to our jobs, doing this, doing that, But anyway, on the other hand, I have to give Norman Mailer this, because at the end of the novel, he does something tremendous that I didn't expect. This is not the most vicious example of a war novel. This is not the most hardcore or ruthless, right? But at the end of the novel, after the Americans have claimed victory over the Japanese on this island called, I don't know, Apape or whatever it's called, right? Norman Mailer shows something incredible. And this is like the last 2 pages, I believe. And it's like, the American army, they have conquered, they have won, and they have killed most of the Japanese soldiers, but they're finding pockets of Japanese soldiers, like 2, 3 at a time. And, everybody's so, exhausted, and they're basically done with it. They're over it. So these American soldiers, they find these surviving Japanese soldiers, and they just execute them in the most barbaric and yet simplistic way possible, because they have a schedule and because they're tired and they want to go back to camp. And, it's going to take a long time to bring these captives, back to camp. So they just execute them with, crushing their heads with the butt of their rifles or whatever. It's just like, in the last 2 pages, read the last 2 pages, the last chapter or so. Norman Mailer, portrays the cruelty and the banality of evil. This is the exact phrase that I want to say. The banality of evil, especially in war. It's just it comes without any hesitation, no reticence. You see, at the end, they find 3 Japanese soldiers. Some of them are sick, right? And the officer, the American officer, is looking at his watch, and he's like, "Oh, we're almost late. We have a schedule." And because the Japanese soldiers are sick or whatever, it's gonna take a long time to bring them back to camp. So what they do is, he just gives the order to execute these Japanese soldiers. And like I said, it's so banal, and yet it's so, savage, right? They just crack their heads open with the butt of their rifles, or they just shoot them in the back of the head, or I don't know, they stab them or whatever with a bayonet or whatever. It's just so, the last 2 pages, they capture this part of the novel really captures your attention. War is absolutely the worst thing that can happen. No question, because in war, anybody is capable of doing anything at all, no matter how evil, no matter how inexplicably, malicious or whatever. So nobody is exempt from this behavior in war. Nobody. And of course, this is just my opinion, but to me, nobody, absolutely nobody, is innocent in war, period. Okay? Because everybody has to commit something unspeakable to survive in wartime. Okay? So that's basically it. The Naked and the Dead, Norman Mailer. It was an okay read, kind of a chore to read, kind of a drag. It took me like more than a month, whatever. I had expectations, and those expectations weren't met. The worst part of this book, like I said, pretty much all the main characters are the same, excluding General Cummings and Hearn, right? They talk the same, they all sound the same, whatever, right? But I do appreciate the fact that the author gives us a look at the past of all our main characters, right? And because of these, almost flashbacks, I gained an appreciation for characters like Goldstein and, General Cummings and Hearn and, I don't know, maybe Red and Gallagher, right? Actually, the best part of this book are these flashback chapters called, the Time Machine, whatever. If you want to support your boy, I got a few books on Amazon. The link will be down below. Thanks for watching. Keep on reading. See ya.